Welcome in, everyone. This is our flow recap for the week of 7/29 to 8/2/2024. We have one piece of flow from the 26th that came in that we're going to recap as well, too. So, a little quieter week, too. A lot of economic data came in. We had FOMC heavy earnings week, so we've been playing it really light. So, it's going to be a quicker video here. So, first up, and for everybody, just for transparency purposes, everything is always posted in Discord here. So again, here's your AFRM from July 26, MU. Kind of always throwing in the flow and some little guidance. Kind of go over some. When the flow doesn't make a big move intraday, I'll break it down. So just kind of some other stuff in here as well. Just notes. So let's get started here. So first up, we had AFRM, and these came in on the 26th. This was on the 29/5 call that expires today, the 2nd. And here is your AFRM whale here. Entry was 0.34. You could see this candle premium was 176,000 on that candle. Let's take a peek at the flow at the time. Again, good flow here. You can kind of see that IV staying up there, not dropping at all. We had a floor trade come in after that. Not part of that initial trade, but a good sign. Everything coming in at the ask. And at the time, 26, you could see that net call premium spiking up as well there. And these contracts hit a high of, let's see, 0.92 per contract on the 30th. So you can see that jump was on Monday. You can see that here. Looks like that whale was probably taking profits in here. So those contracts, and I'm going to do the full range of the contracts. Doesn't mean that you're going to exit at the top. You're more than likely never going to. But we're just going to look at the full range. And this whale kind of probably looks like they started to exit here about 72, 54, 50-ish. So good return for them. But these contracts had a max range of 0.34 per contract to 0.92% or 0.92 per contract for 170.59%. So good little trade there. Good swing over the weekend. Coming in on Monday, we had weekly MU puts. And this was a really nice trade. Here is our entry here. 186,000 on that candle. 1,900 ask side contracts. And looking at the flow here, can see that IV jump up here as that continues to come in. Spot was increasing there as well. And if we look at the flow alert here, again, you can see that IV coming up here. That's what I'm looking for. Continues to go up there. And you can see that spot price increasing, which usually will suggest buyers of that contract. And these are actually hitting the high of the week today. They're hit 13.15 on them today. That is pretty big move on those ones. Entry was 0.78 on those, 0.75, 0.78. So we are getting, and it looks like the whale probably took some off the table there, and a little harder to tell here because this tape's a little bit more muddy. But, so with these coming in on the 29th, here is, and again, looking at that candle, 2,300 contracts on the 29th, about 5,400 traded that day, which we did have some other candles coming here. They could have exited at the ask. Can't tell 100% because about half that carried over. So somebody could have probably passed the contracts off as well, too. But that open interest staying pretty high for a majority of the week. And then we're seeing that max here at 13.15. So again, that whale looks like they probably got out around 230, which is still almost a 300% return for them, depending on where they got out there. But these contracts running from that 0.78 to a high of 13.15 today. That is a 1,585.90% return there. And more than likely with the weeklies, and you see this drop here, you're probably going to have stops on. You're not going to let something drop to 40, 50 cents and then wait for it to come up like that. More than likely, you shouldn't be doing that. And kind of looking at that net premium over the last 7 days too. Little call net premium there, but a huge spike in that net put premium. Something to watch there. And we haven't had a lot of call premium coming in either. Little net put premium there, but still not seeing a huge spike in that. So those contracts running from a max return of 0.78 to 13.15 per contract. Huge return on those. So next up, we have a couple examples of whales exiting trades. So these SPY calls came in. Make it a little less messy. So we're going to do it on the 30th because this whale closed on the 30th. So 30th, these came in on Tuesday. Here's your whale entering the contracts at $1.48. Looks like they averaged down a little bit here at 0.98. Can kind of see that here in the sizing. 3,000, we'll make it even, 3,000 on that candle volume. 1,000 there. So about 4,000 contracts traded there. Can see this candle a little over 4,000 contracts on the bid side here. So this whale is more than likely closing these intraday. And looking at that volume here, about 4,000 on one candle, 4,000 on the other, about 8,000 give or take. So you can see that volume here, 9,500 on the day, only 1,405 contracts carried over. That whale closed these intraday. So this is a really good, clean example of the whale closing intraday. And funny thing is, this whale probably shouldn't have closed because these contracts hit a high of, where were we? Let's see, hold on. There we go. That's why it's messed up. So this is where that whale closed. The next day, we gapped up. Contracts hit 275 for a high there, 302 there, and they even hit 305 on August 1st. So this whale closed these contracts at a 45% loss. But these contracts, if they would have held them, these contracts would have hit 103%. But again, whale closed. This was heading into FOMC day. So kind of makes sense why they probably closed. They were kind of looking for that bounce intraday. But again, this is a good example of why whales, I mean, these people, they're people too. They're not perfect. And you can see that here. So I'll chalk that one up as a loss for us. Contracts did go positive, but whale exited, and people are more than likely going to follow the whales. So chalk that up as a loss for us. And we had GM 11-15-47 calls. Another one where the whale exited the next day. Can see that entry here. 5,000 contracts for 1.1 million on there. And kind of broke down a little bit throughout the day. Opened. You can see that 5,000 candle volume there. Whale cutting that. So selling them for 835,000 there. So taking a little, about 300,000 off of that. And we can see that reflected down here also. Here's that 5,000 on 731. That roughly 5,000 carrying over. The bid side, there's your minus, and there's the subtraction in open interest. Again, they're people. They're not going to be correct 100% of the time, but a good example, good teaching moment to see what exiting trade looks like. All right, moving on now. So this one was kind of a mistake on my end. I was kind of looking at the flow fast. I'm not going to cover this one too deep, but we had KSS flow come in for 816. This overlaps. Whoops. This overlaps earnings here. So this is an earnings flow play. I would typically never call out earnings plays. Earnings are a big gamble. The way it was showing in the columns, I accidentally missed a part. I saw a dash in the IV spot instead of the actual earnings spot, so I thought the earnings passed. So my mistake on that one. That was just a bad read, but whale's still in. Wouldn't gamble on this. Chalk that up as a loss if you took that. So moving on, then we had the 922.18 IWM puts. These were a very nice trade for us. And again, a nice clean exit here. Good example here. So here is our flow that came in. We had 12 million total premium on this candle. 18,000 contracts traded. That is a massive whale. And pulling up the actual flow here. Come down here. We had a bunch of these come in at the same time too. So 2303, you see that IV there, we're a little higher there on the spot. Price drops a little. 2303. 23, and then we go back up to 2303. Still staying at that ask side on the spot. Still seeing that IV stay up. Drops a little bit here, but this isn't part of the big trade. Then we have more coming, 2306. Here's a jump in the IV, jump in the spot price, jump in the IV, huge premium, and this coming in at the ask too. So that spot's continuing to go up, spot's continuing to go up. IV's increasing. Another one, IV increasing. All the way up here. So that is good flow there for IWM. And these were filled at 661. We caught the alert a little bit early. I have it right here actually. It's my ETF flow. So IWM, we had this come in here. We caught it early. You can see that 645 is when we caught it. Good little discounted entry. And again, you can see how that flow was coming in. And even just quickly looking at this, you can see it's all the same strike, same expiration. You just look at that spot right there very quickly, increasing. So that's what looked good to me right there. That's what stuck out. And here we are. So again, 18,000 contracts we'll say on here. And then swinging into today, about 13,000 on that first one and 5,000 there. So that's where you get your 18,000 there. And you can see that reflected here. 19,000 contracts traded yesterday, about 15,000 carrying over, 14,000 carrying over. And we got about 19,000 traded today. So we'll see what these open up as on Monday, but more than likely this whale is taking profits today because these contracts ran 645 to a high of 1384, 114% on those. And again, we were coming into data, so non-farm payroll, unemployment rate. That's where this whale got that gap from. So those contracts running 645 to 1384, 114.57%. We have 2 more to go. So CMG, this made a nice intraday move for us today. Here is our whale entry. We'll look at the flow quick. So here's where that whale came in. You can see that IV was a little lower there. Spike in the IV when it comes in. That spot price jumps as well. We're at the ask. IV staying up here. Spot staying at the ask. Drops a little bit here, but we're still at that ask side. So, I mean, something with this, because you do have that sweep at the end with that spike back again in the back to the high of 43.03 on the IV, 43.07 on the IV percent. But we're staying at the ask for a majority of this. A little bit under there, nothing major. To me, and with the spread, you're sitting on that ask side. So that looked good to me. And at the time, when this came in this morning, that net call premium was spiking. These contracts moving from 0.25 to a high of 40 today. 60% on those. They moved intraday for us. And we have one more MU, which will be interesting to keep following. We'll look at the actual flow here first. So here's where that whale came in. So here's where our whale started, 58.25. And you can see we're staying at that ask side for a majority of this, 58.25. Small drop in the IV. You can see that ask side still. Then we have a jump in the spot and the IV. Good sign there. And again, that IV and spot staying towards that ask side there on the spot. IV staying high. Looks like a buy to me. And then we did have these additional candles. This one's getting a little muddy, a little harder to read. So kind of have to see where we go. A little longer term days to expiration here for these are the end of the month, 8:30. So again, kind of looking at this, just doing a little math. 1,500 on this candle, but then we do have these little candles come in. We'll just kind of make the math easy. So we'll say 250 for that one, 250 there, 250 there, 250 there. So we have another 1,000 contracts there. So right here we're at about 2,500 if this is the same person. Now this is where it gets a little messy because we have some bid and ask here coming here, about 400 there, 500 there, so 900 between those two candles, plus another 164. So roughly 1,000 in that. So to me, this is a little tougher to read just because you have about 1,000 in those 4 candles and about 1,000 there. So to me, this is probably this little mini whale. If they're not connected, we don't know 100% for sure if the whales are connected or not. But this little trader looks like they probably may have cut because they filled at 175 here and they closed at 185. So they closed for a little gain there, if anything, than 164. Yeah, it's hard to tell that one, but to me it looks like this big whale could still be in. And we can see that reflection on Monday morning when this updates. But yeah, a little quieter week for us. Not really trying to force stuff with earnings and all that, but kind of a mixed week for us too. But this happens. You're not going to, I mean, some of these weeks we've went 13 for 14, 10 for 12. I mean, just outstanding weeks. You're not going to have that every single week. There's going to be weeks like this where you're down a bit. You have to come back and kind of revisit things. But I mean, still a little slower start to the month for us right now. Obviously, only 2 days in, but we'll see what next week brings us. We're kind of towards the end of the heavier companies for earnings, So next week we should start seeing a little better flow. Have a great weekend, everyone.